So a great lineup ahead this Saturday night, starting with You've Been Framed in 15 minutes. The latest news now on ITV1 with Shuli Ghosh. It's 5:30.
London's morning. 2 days after the terror attacks, the struggle to find the missing continues.
I'm absolutely convinced that he's just shell-shocked somewhere and he's in a hospital and he's hurt, and we're just going to keep going until we find him.
For the relatives, it's been another agonising day as the slow process of identification continues. Also tonight, vital evidence. Police piece together just how the killer struck.
All 3 bombs on the London Underground system actually exploded within seconds of each other.
And an attack on us all, the British Muslim who vanished amid the carnage. Good evening. They are brothers, sisters, mothers and fathers. And this evening they are still missing, the lost victims of Thursday's terror attacks. For a third terrible day, their families and friends face an agonising wait for news. Incredibly, even though 49 people have been confirmed dead, no one has yet been officially told whether they have relatives among them. Many bodies haven't even been recovered. They're still in the tube carriage destroyed beneath King's Cross, and which emergency services are still trying to reach this evening. Above ground, the area has become a focal point for families of the missing. Helen Callaghan is there now. Helen.
Well, you know, friends and relatives of those who are still missing have been coming here to King's Cross all day, and many of them have been putting up some posters with calling contact numbers on so that people can get in touch. They are desperate for any kind of detail that will lead them to their loved ones. They haven't seen them since the attacks. Other people have been coming here to King's Cross and leaving floral tributes. But for those whose family members or whose friends are still missing, it has been an absolutely agonising day.
Yvonne Nash is still searching. She's heard nothing of her boyfriend, Jamie Gordon, since the explosions. But like so many others, she's determined and optimistic that he will be found.
We have to keep going. I'm absolutely convinced that he was on the ground floor of the number 30 bus. And we've seen all the pictures from the bus now, and the ground floor looks like it was okay. So I'm absolutely convinced that he's just shell-shocked somewhere and he's in a hospital and he's hurt, and we're just going to keep going until we find him because he needs us with him.
These are the faces of the missing. They include local commuters, men and women from different parts of Britain who happen to be travelling through London, and tourists from overseas. All of them were last seen before the explosions on Thursday morning. So now their faces are looking out from posters all over London. Friends and relatives desperate for information have been leaving photographs and contact numbers here at King's Cross and elsewhere. But as time goes on, many of those who are still searching know there's a growing chance that their loved ones may be among those lost during the explosions underground, those whose bodies have not yet been recovered.
We have no evidence to lead us to identify any person that's been a victim.
There are flowers for the 49 people who police have confirmed were killed. But for those who don't know if their loved ones are dead or alive, there'll be no rest until they've found some certainty.
So we've got floral tributes here from people from all over the world, especially some people from Madrid who've left cards saying, "I'm so sorry." The people of Madrid stand with the people of London. And here at King's Cross, it's been extremely busy all day. It's become a sort of a focal point, really, for people who want to leave some sort of tribute to those who died. Especially behind me, you can probably see the police presence here. That's because there's a press conference ongoing. They're giving us an update about an investigation that is going on about 100 feet below us. Of course, that's the explosion site, and there are people who've been lost down there whose bodies have still to be recovered.
Helen, thank you. And if you think you know one of those people or someone else who may be missing, then do go to our website. That's www.itv.com/news. There you can see the pictures of missing people and post your own pictures. Tell us if you're trying to trace a relative or friend and if you're getting the right help. Well, a special support centre to help those families was set up this afternoon. It'll give what information and advice it can to people still waiting to hear what happened to missing relatives. Damon Green is there now. Damon, what more can you tell us?
Well, we know that the families have spent 2.5 days now waiting for news, 2.5 days in which they've been through so many emotions, fear, anguish, frustration, and now, I'm afraid, anger among some families that there is no one person to give them any hard information about what's happened. And that's why this building, this leisure centre near Victoria Station, West London, has been thrown open to volunteers from the Red Cross and other agencies, not just to give emotional support to those families arriving here, but also provide a single point of contact. And it was opened earlier by the Minister, Tessa Jowell.
This is their safe place in order to come to talk, to get more information, and just a place where they can be with other people who are going through the same personal nightmare as they are.
Well, of course, it's impossible for us to know what those families are going through, but from what they've been saying, you get a sense that it's not just the helplessness, it's not a lack of emotional support, it's a lack of anyone to tell them whether their loved ones are gone or not. Back to you.
Damon, thank you. Well, this is their safe place in order to come to talk, to get more information, and just a place where they can be with other people who are going through the same personal nightmare as they are. Well, it's been described as hell on earth, 120 feet underground in appalling heat and conditions. Emergency teams are in a desperate battle this evening to reach the tube carriage where the bomb exploded. It still contains many bodies, more than 48 hours after the blast. The emergency teams are in the Piccadilly line underneath the streets between Russell Square and King's Cross. Let's cross live now to Emma Murphy, who's there. Emma.
Surely Russell Square is shielded from public view tonight by big white tarpaulins. It's to allow the emergency services to get on with their work uninterrupted. And yet 120 feet below where I'm standing now, dozens of officers are battling amid the dark, the searing heat and the fumes of London's underground tunnels in order to try and gain access to that one carriage where they believe a number of bodies still remain 2.5 days after the victims boarded their train on the way from King's Cross to Russell Square. One rescue worker has said that this is a scene of hell on earth. The conditions are said to be utterly atrocious. The tunnel roof has had to be propped up, as has the roof of the train. And in order to gain access to that first carriage, rescue workers are having to walk through every single carriage to get there. It is very dangerous work, and it's extremely time-consuming, because this isn't only a carriage that is now holding the bodies of the dead, but this is also a crime scene, and they have to show respect for the dead, as well as respect for the evidence that they're able to garner. This is what the head of British Transport Police told us about that operation.
It's slow and meticulous work. The officers involved stopped in the early hours of this morning in order to decide upon the tactics for today. We had to look at all the safety issues, the incredible heat down there, the great difficulty they're having in getting into the carriage and removing the bodies.
Emma, it's obviously a painstaking process. Do we have any idea when the station may reopen?
Not at this stage. We don't yet know how long the retrieval process will take, and obviously that has to take priority. What we do know is that these are some of the deepest tunnels within the underground system, and there will need to be some serious structural work done just to assess exactly how much damage was done when the explosion went off, and it's only when that work is complete that they will be able to consider reopening the tube and reopening the station. At this stage, though, that is not a priority. The priority is to recover the bodies, bring them to the surface, and then return them to the families who grieve them.
Emma Murphy, thank you very much. Well, senior police officers revealed today that all 3 tube bombs went off within seconds of each other. The bus bomb, they confirmed, went off about an hour later. Forensic teams are still combing all 3 sites for vital clues. There are fears that the terror cell responsible could still be at large and strike again. Harry Smith reports.
It's been described as one of the biggest forensic jigsaw puzzles the world has seen. Over the next few days, they will piece together what the bombers blew apart in the hope that it will give police a detailed picture of who was responsible.
They're going to have to do it the long way, and the long way is actually reconstructing the device as best they can, reconstructing the detonator, maybe trying to find the source of it, trying to find the source of the explosive, identify the manufacturer, and then you start making inquiries and you build back. They have to do that. That might be the only chance that they're going to have.
It's thought the bombers could be young British Muslims radicalised by the September the 11th attacks. It's known many Britons have already travelled abroad to fight and returned as trained terrorists. They could be the same terrorists who bombed Madrid. Several suspects from Spain are known to have fled to the UK, and the similarities between the two attacks give weight to this argument. Another theory is that bin Laden himself dispatched a team to carry out the attacks after the West ignored his offer of a truce in return for withdrawal from Iraq. Whoever the bombers were, they showed a high degree of organisation and planning, according to new information about the timings. The killers struck at one of the busiest times of the day. We now know the first explosion was at 8:50 on a train just outside Aldgate Underground Station. 7 people were killed. 50 seconds later came the bomb at Edgware Road Station. Another 7 passengers died. And 50 seconds after that, a bomb went off between King's Cross and Russell Square, killing at least 21 people. Among the many unanswered questions, was this the work of suicide bombers, or did they leave the bombs after setting the timers? Although this has to be a slow and painstaking investigation, there is for the police a degree of urgency. If the experience of Madrid is anything to go by, if the bombers are still alive, then they could be planning another attack. Harry Smith, ITV News, Russell Square.
The British people will not be terrorised by terror. The words of the Prime Minister today as he praised Britain's resilience after the bomb attacks and sent a message of defiance to the bombers. But he admitted that if people are prepared to blow up completely innocent people at random, no amount of surveillance could stop them. Let's cross now to our political correspondent, Libby Wiener, who's out Downing Street. Libby, obviously a lot of speculation, but is there any doubt in the Prime Minister's mind that this was the work of Islamic terrorists?
Shuli, I think absolutely none. I think the Prime Minister is convinced that Islamic terrorists were responsible for this. He talked today of this dreadful perversion of Islam, making a difference there, pointing out there was a difference between ordinary Muslims and fanatics who were prepared to kill innocent civilians. He also went out of his way, though, to reject any suggestion that his policies in Iraq might have in any way encouraged the bombers. He pointed out that the September the 11th attacks happened before the war in Afghanistan and before the war in Iraq. And he also said that the bombers in Madrid had planned further attacks after the general election there, which led to a change of government.
And Libby, we're hearing that an official 2-minute silence is being planned.
Yes, Tessa Jowell, who is acting for the government helping the families and relatives, has announced that there will be a 2-minute silence next Thursday at noon to remember those who died and those who've been injured in these bombings. Beyond that, I've been speaking to government officials about what the government believes might be necessary in terms of new security measures, and I'm told that they do believe that the current measures going through Parliament are sufficient. Those measures were proposed because the government believed that a terrorist threat was very real, that an attack like this might happen sometime, and they believe those measures such as control orders and identity cards will continue to go through Parliament, but they're much more likely to be defended by the government, more easy to defend now and much harder to attack.
Libby, thank you. And if you have an image on your phone or your camera from the day London was attacked, we want to hear from you. You can send us your photos on 07834 940 000. Or if you have a 3G video phone, send your pictures to 0870 738 0050. Or you can email us, of course, and tell us your story. Our address is newschannel@itv.com. And if you're one of the people in this remarkable picture of the bus, we want to hear from you too. Do you recognise those shocked survivors? If you do, call our hotline 0207 430 4186. That number again, 0207 430 4186. Let's get some other news making the headlines tonight. Police hunting the killer of a 10-year-old schoolgirl today said they want to trace a number of people in connection with her murder. Lauren Pilkington-Smith was found dead yesterday in woodland close to her home in Lee in Greater Manchester. She'd been missing since Thursday evening. Police investigating the rape and murder of the A-level student Jeshma Raitata have charged a Latvian man. Victor Dembovkosis is accused of attacking the 17-year-old in May. And the Queen unveiled a memorial sculpture today to the women who served Britain during World War II. The sculpture near the Cenotaph in London was dedicated to those so capable in so many unexpected ways. Well, we're back to our top story now and the agonising wait for news of relatives missing after the terrorist attacks. Police suspect Islamic terrorists. One thing is clear. They were indiscriminate in their deadly violence. Black or white, Muslim or non-Muslim, they're all among the victims. Well, I spoke to one man searching for his niece. He's a Muslim, and he spoke of his community's anger at an atrocity possibly carried out in the name of Islam. At the East London Mosque, Muslims unite in prayer. Among them, the family of a young woman still missing after the bomb blasts. Shahara Islam is a product of our multicultural society, a devout Muslim born in Britain who worked in a bank and wore Western clothes but followed the Islamic faith. Now her family face the appalling likelihood that she is dead, probably at the hands of Islamic terrorists.
What human on this planet would cause such atrocities? I cannot think of anyone who, no matter how insane or how deluded they are and how detached from reality they may be, everyone has a sense of responsibility, and one of the basic responsibilities is not to harm another human life.
Amid his fear for Shahara, there's also anger that the attacks have led to a backlash against his community.
If it does turn out to be a group who are linked to an Islamic group, then